The fluorescent lights in the office building's lobby buzzed faintly, casting a sterile glow over the polished marble floor. Ethan Cole wiped his hands on the rag tucked into his janitor's belt, the faint scent of industrial cleaner clinging to his clothes. It was almost midnight, and the place was empty except for the faint hum of vending machines and the muffled sound of rain tapping against the tall glass windows. He was ready to clock out. His back ached from bending over all day, and his palms were raw from scrubbing floors that most people never even noticed. Still, Ethan didn't complain. He couldn't afford to. Every extra shift meant a little more money toward his daughter Lily's school tuition and the asthma medication she needed. Lily was his reason for everything. She was 8, with bright brown eyes that seemed too big for her face and a laugh that made the world seem lighter, even when everything else felt heavy. She'd been through enough for someone so small, her mother leaving, the hospital stays, the endless bills. Ethan had promised himself that no matter what, she would never feel the fear and uncertainty he did growing up. As he wheeled his cleaning cart toward the storage closet, he noticed the elevator doors sliding open across the lobby. A tall woman stepped out, tapping furiously at her phone, her expression a mixture of irritation and exhaustion. She wore a sleek navy blazer and black heels that clicked sharply against the floor. Ethan recognized her from the framed corporate photos hanging in the main hallway. Charlotte Grant, the CEO. She barely glanced up as she approached the doors again, but they shut before she could get inside. She muttered something under her breath and pressed the button again. "Long night?" Ethan asked without thinking, his voice echoing slightly in the empty lobby. Charlotte glanced at him, clearly not used to being addressed by the janitorial staff. "Something like that," she said curtly. The elevator dinged, and they stepped in together. Ethan shifted awkwardly, holding his mop handle so it wouldn't bump into her. She tapped her phone screen again, replying to emails at lightning speed. The doors closed, and then the elevator shuddered violently. The lights flickered, the hum of movement stopped, and a sudden stillness fell over them. Charlotte looked up from her phone, startled. What was that? Ethan pressed the emergency button. No response. He tried the intercom, static. "Looks like we're stuck," he said, keeping his voice calm. He'd been in worse situations before, but he knew panic could make anything worse. Charlotte let out a sharp breath. "Great. Just perfect." She glanced at her phone, muttering, "No signal down here." Ethan studied the ceiling panel. Might be the storm outside. Power outage somewhere in the system. Minutes stretched into half an hour. The air grew warm and stale. Charlotte tried pacing, but the confined space only amplified her frustration. "You're awfully calm for someone trapped in an elevator," she remarked, leaning against the mirrored wall. "Panicking doesn't fix anything," Ethan replied. "Besides, I've got someone waiting for me at home. I've got to keep my head clear if I want to see her." Charlotte tilted her head. "Your wife?" "My daughter," he said, a small smile tugging at his lips. 8 years old. Smarter than me, for sure. She's probably in bed by now, but she always waits for me to check in." Something in his tone softened her guarded expression. "You're a single dad?" "Yeah. Been that way for a while now." The conversation was interrupted by another jolt. This one was sharper, accompanied by a faint groan of metal. A faint, acrid smell filled the air, electrical wiring overheating. "That's not good," Ethan muttered, scanning the corners of the elevator. Smoke began to curl from the control panel. Charlotte's voice wavered for the first time. "Is it dangerous?" Ethan's instincts kicked in. "We need to get out before it gets worse." He grabbed the mop handle, wedging it between the doors and forcing them apart just enough to see the dim concrete shaft outside. They were stuck between floors, the upper opening just high enough for someone to climb through. "You first," he said, kneeling to boost her up. Charlotte hesitated, looking at the gap. "What about you?" "I'll be right behind you." "But you need to move, now." The smell grew stronger. Charlotte swallowed her fear and let him lift her. She scrambled onto the edge, gripping the cold metal frame. Ethan gave her one last push until she was pulled up by a security guard who had arrived above. The elevator groaned again. Smoke thickened. "Come on." Charlotte's voice echoed from above, urgency breaking through her usual composure. Ethan grabbed the ledge, pulling himself up. But the elevator shifted under his weight, sinking slightly. He froze, knowing too much force might drop it entirely. In that split second, he heard a creak that told him exactly what was happening: the cables were straining. If they snapped, the fall would be fatal. He looked up at Charlotte, who was leaning dangerously close, reaching for his hand. Her eyes were wide, panic written all over her face. "Take my hand," she shouted. Ethan shook his head. "Step back." Before she could argue, he braced his foot on the inner wall and shoved his mop handle upward toward her. "Use this, pull it." With the guard's help, she managed to hook the mop handle and haul it back, catching Ethan's wrist. With a final, desperate pull, they yanked him out just as the elevator dropped away beneath them, crashing into the bottom of the shaft with a deafening boom. The three of them lay on the floor, coughing from the smoke. Charlotte turned to Ethan, her voice trembling. You saved my life." He shook his head, still catching his breath. "We saved each other." The fire department arrived minutes later, escorting them out into the cool night air. Rain had slowed to a drizzle, the city lights reflecting off wet pavement. Charlotte stood beside him, shivering slightly. "Ethan, was it?" she asked quietly. "Yeah." She hesitated, then said, "You risked everything back there. You didn't have to, especially for someone you don't even know." Ethan shrugged. "Doesn't matter if I know you. People help people. That's how it should be." Something in her expression changed then. The woman who had walked into the elevator, a figure of authority and distance, now looked at him with something almost like respect. 2 days later, Ethan was back at work, mopping the same marble floor. He thought the whole thing was over, just another strange night in a life full of them. But that morning, his supervisor handed him an envelope. Inside was a letter on expensive paper with the Grant Enterprises logo. "Ethan. I don't believe in coincidences. I believe people cross paths for a reason. I would like you to come to my office on Monday morning. I have a position I think you're perfect for, one that could change everything for you and your daughter. Charlotte." Ethan stared at the letter for a long moment, feeling his chest tighten, not with fear, but with the unfamiliar weight of possibility. For the first time in a long time, the future didn't seem like a battle he had to fight alone. And somewhere deep down, he knew that a broken elevator and a single moment of selflessness had just rewritten both of their lives forever.